Hi, it's Wayne from howtofish.com.au, and I thought I'd explore some of the area near my house looking for spots that I can fish. I'd fished this area about a year ago, and in some spots on the river where there's easier access, there's fish to be had. It's just really a matter of trying to locate those spots that give you a small area you can fish from that's close to the water. For a lot of the part of these rivers, the river itself is not all of that deep, but the banks on either side can be very, very steep. It makes it very hard to get down to, and a little bit precarious when you're actually trying to fish. But the Yarra has plenty of fish in it if you know what you're doing. Now here, the most common fish, of course, is going to be carp, and that's what I caught at this spot. But the fact is, they're a bit of fun to catch if you can locate water near your house. Just by doing a little bit of research, you can find fish that'll actually give you a bit of a challenge and a bit of a fight, and that's what these carp did. So it was a matter of using burley to attract fish, using baits that they like worms and corn, and then just basically doing the work of getting them in. Now at times I'd caught fish up to 7 kilos, which is pretty big, but the majority of fish are not that big, and there are quite a few in these waters that you find are fairly small. But no matter what, it's catching fish, it's getting out, and these days catching any fish at all is great. So at this time, all I'm trying to do is find fish holding areas as I walk along the river. And the great thing about walking along the river is you see wildlife from time to time. These rainbow lorikeets are making nests in these empty branches, empty logs, and it's great to see those. But it's not just the parakeets that you see. It's things like this. This is a common bronzewing, I think, and these are all about everywhere if you take the time to actually have a look at what's around. I also, as I was checking the water, came across, of all things, a platypus. It's just great to see it in this water. So this is suburban river water, which I would have thought is fairly degraded, but it's great to see that some wildlife, especially things like the native platypus, can make a home there. It's really chuffed to see that. Now, as I walked along, I was looking for accessible areas. As you can see across the other side of the river, very, very steep banks leading down to the water, overgrown with foliage. Can't really get into it. But if you can, and you've got the right bait, there are fish in there, as we've seen. There's carp, there's eels. Occasionally you might get other types of fish. And if you do it right, like my son did many years ago, you can catch carp. So this is what I'm looking for, a little bit of a bank area, if I can get down to it, where I could fish from. This leads down to the water. Noting, of course, that we're in winter. When summer comes, this water might drop by another 60 centimeters or so. But here would be at least a spot I can put a bait in, potentially. There's a lot of these holes around, which are wombat holes, which is great to see in the local area. I was surprised at the number of holes and the amount of dirt that they can move. It's amazing. All on the banks of a river, because the soil is fairly sandy and easy to dig into. Spots like this, we're a little bit high. There's a bit of a little beach area there, but getting down to it is pretty treacherous, so that's a challenge. But if you can, there's fish to be had, and I caught this one in that area a year ago. And then there's spots like this where a tree has fallen in, or there's so much rubbish in the water, branches and foliage, that you really can't get to it. Now, while heavily vegetated areas and where trees and branches and structure in the water can be difficult to fish, if you can get your bait near it, that's where fish will be. They love structure. So here at a completely different spot, but just as an example, I had put my bait under an overhanging tree, and by feeding in a little bit of bait periodically, by throwing that in and little tiny bits of burley and drip feeding that along, I managed to hook into a fish that followed the food upstream. So one of the key things is to make sure that the food is flowing down to where the fish are. The great thing about a river is, because of the current, it'll take bait and the smell of burley and everything else downstream, and eventually fish will pick up on that. Now, it can take them a while to peck their way up until they find your bait, but it certainly gives you a great advantage. And here I'd done that. I'd got a fish in a pretty tricky area, but by managing to walk around on the bank, move to the side, I eventually got it in. Yes, it was only a carp, but it was still great fun to catch, and fish of any size in a reasonably strong current feel like they're a lot bigger, so the fight is fantastic as well. Anyway, it was just great to hook a fish and have some fun on the day. Now, this fish wasn't a big one, but if you're lucky and you do it right, it is surprising the size of fish that you can catch in local waters.